On this week's Wine Walk, we have the one and only Merril Hoge, old buddy, old pal, old ESPNer.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you. We go way back
My pleasure,
to.
I know. I feel honored that I get to be a part of this.
8
walk.
years, maybe.
Yeah.
It's been a while. This was before pre-brainwashed, pre a lot of the things that you've been through. So we're gonna have a chat.
That's a good point.
So a little Syrah for you, something big, bold, and long-lasting. Come on. Also, a note to the viewers out there: he did not bring a coat.
Did not get that memo.
Nope, did not. So it's about 20 degrees outside. And you're gonna brave the weather for this.
I'm gonna do it, kid. I'm gonna do it.
You know, you've been through worse.
That's right, I have.
You've been through worse.
It's fired up. We're ready.
All right, cheers.
Let's go, sweet. The wine walk is on.
Everything came so quickly, it seemed like. As both incidents occurred, was it just completely unexpected? Is that what led you to eventually writing Brainwashed, to just let people know?
Well,
where did that inspiration come from? Did you feel like you had an obligation to do it?
I felt like I had an obligation after I found the truth about what science is saying. Then I felt like I had an obligation.
That's one of the problems with CTE, is that it's undiagnosable until they actually take pieces of your brain and scan it for them.
Well, yeah,
so that's part of the problem, is that right now we're talking about a disease that until you're dead, we cannot confirm whether or not you have or don't have. So that's one of the problems. The study that was done that said 111 players,
110 out of 111 brains.
exactly, and 110 were found to have CTE. Obviously that's an unfair study, because the brains that were taken were players that thought that maybe they had CTE.
First of all, it's a bias. It's a grotesque bias study. The methodology is atrocious. It's the bottom barrel, lowest grade level of science you could possibly ever do in a thing. I could do the exact same study, or I could do the exact same.
Adios, por favor. This fucking crazy guy. I don't know. Sorry. We're talking about CTE and this lunatic is.
Now that motherfucker had CTE. Jesus. The hell was that?
Confirmed. We don't need to study his brain to figure that out.
That's called a nut job.
Okay, let me ask you this. How is the possibility of CTE any different than the NFL not disclosing correct concussion protocol back in the day? You sued the Bears for not discussing, for letting you go back out there when you clearly weren't ready 5 days after you suffered the first concussion. You rightfully sued. Teams shouldn't. How is that any different?
Why did I sue? Because of improper care. Okay, improper care and protocols are completely different than a scientific pattern nobody knows anything about. You can't draw the two together, and that's what people do.
But if CTE, if we're trying to learn about CTE, and if we're trying to figure out how directly it is linked to football, to head collisions.
You can't say directly linked. You can't say that, because the evidence speaks against that. You already got 100 cases, roughly 100 cases. They never played football, they never played sports, they never played, so how do you can't even do that.
So you don't think that there's a possibility that CTE was responsible for the death of Mike Webster,
there's no evidence
of Terry
of that.
Long, of
Absolutely
Junior
not.
Seau, of Aaron Hernandez, who was found to have the highest, as far as like the greatest concerned, highest level of CTE imaginable.
For an age group, right?
Right.
How many people in that age group?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
Try zero. He's the only one. Okay. See, that's my point. How do you say something like that? Because he's the only one? That's ridiculous. That's embarrassing. So you're telling me that's an excuse. You're telling me, first of all, there's no scientific evidence of what you're alluding to. Number one.
I'm just asking the question.
I know, but what I'm trying to get at is you're insinuating that there's even a scientific evidence of that. There's none. You're going to tell me that Aaron Hernandez, who I've known before when he was in high school, was a troubled kid, was doing bad things. You're telling me that he's sitting in an 8x8 cell, just lost $40 million, won't be able to see his daughter grow up, gonna be double murders. You're telling me that didn't weigh on his head? You're gonna try to blame?
I'm 1,000%. Everything works together.
You cannot
There's
blame.
many pieces
there is
to that,
no
to that
scientific.
puzzle.
Mike Webster died of heart failure. Okay, Justin Strozek died in a car accident. Terry Long, all the people, Dave Durison's death, Junior Seau's death, none of it CTE is responsible for. There's no scientific evidence.
How do you explain the age pattern of their brains? How do you explain a 20-year-old having the brain of a 60-year-old?
You can't say that some 20-year-old's brain looks like a 60-year-old when I see 60-year-old brains that look better as far as tau goes than a 20-year-old. There's no such thing. When you look at brains, I've been in and cut brains with doctors. They've had a table of brains ranged from 30 to 101. And do you know all of them look the same? It wasn't like you knew the 37-year-old versus the 101. In fact, I asked them, well, how do you know how old they are? They go, the date of birth. I'm like, you don't look at them and you know how old they are? And they're like, that doesn't exist. There's no such thing like that. And you can't say that this is a brain of a 65-year-old that was a 20-year-old kid. There is no physical evidence or visual thing that looks like that.
Well, I will say you are putting your money where your mouth is because you have a son that is playing ball.
Yeah.
And there's no fear whatsoever as a parent and as overprotective as parents are.
Let me tell you this, if I'd have found out the antithesis, my son wouldn't be playing football. I'd have pulled him out the second I found out something that smelled wrong, was wrong. Just in the last month, we've had former NFL alumni players pass away in their 80s and 90s.
That's right, because there was the rumor that the average NFL player has a shorter lifespan.
Such a crock. I mean, in the book I explained that's such a crock. But they played back in the 50s and 60s, okay? When you had plastic, no helmets, leather helmets, and they lived a long, full life. I'd go, why didn't anybody want to see those brains?
I won't forget that and you said in the book that when the first time you stepped into the huddle with Mike Webster, his helmet had dings and
I've never seen anything like it.
Dented in every which way. Nobody wanted to get a new helmet.
No.
It's like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I think is what you described it
Yeah,
as.
and that was very true. And even today, players, the equipment, the helmets they had today are actually, I thought, even undreamable in how they could absorb and withstand impact, whereas the helmet was initially designed just to withstand impact. NASCAR helmet was a much better helmet than a football helmet. Well, what happened? They've now got football helmets. They don't withstand impact, they absorb impact, and they deflect impact.
We finally made it.
Finally
made it. Merril survived literally freezing temperatures. Thank you for playing along, and at least
pleasure.
you know what? You look good. You
Cheers.
might feel terrible,
Well, you
freezing,
look beautiful.
but you
Always
look good.
good seeing you.
Thank
You don't have to
man.
walk back, do you?
You're beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.